We've got to be awake, and we've got to be aware. Now, part of being awake and aware is getting proper rest. I talked a little bit about this past Thursday. Jesus was very aware of the fact that when he was preaching and teaching and healing, that he had to be physically and mentally and spiritually prepared. Part of that means that we need to get proper rest. I love several of the places in the Bible where Jesus would try to get away to get some rest. And earlier in Mark's gospel, just before Jesus feeds the 5,000 men along with women and children, he really had tried to get away for some rest. And it says that the apostles gathered around Jesus, and Jesus told them that they had done all that they had done and taught. And he said to them, Jesus said to his apostles, "Come away to a deserted place by yourselves and rest a while." Jesus was talking to his disciples, and he said, look, ministry is tough, ministry is hard. And if we're going to continue to be the people that God has created us to be, then we need to get our proper rest. And so he encouraged them to go away and find a place to rest. For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in a boat to a deserted place, and they rested. There are many studies that have been done that tell us that Americans are some of the most sleep-deprived people in the entire world. We go and we go and we go and we drink Monster drinks and NOS drinks and 5-hour energy drinks, and we drink coffee like it's coming and going and spending $4 a cup on it, and we're still tired. We still don't get enough rest. So if we're going to do the things that God's called us to do, if we're going to show up and wake up, then we've got to also be able to rest and to recover and to renew. That's what the revival was all about. As we talked about last week, it was that time when the crops had been laid aside. It was that time when folks could come and gather with family and friends, and they could hear the word proclaimed, and they could celebrate. But even as we're in the midst of our resting, we begin to come awake. We begin to become aware of the good news that is ours in Christ. Now, I'll tell you something I'm guilty of. I don't like getting up in the morning, but my mother used to remind me of this, and now my wife reminds me of this on a regular basis. It's amazing when I have something I want to do in the morning. See, some of y'all are guilty of this too. It's amazing when I have something I want to do in the morning, I wake up and the alarm hasn't even gone off. I wake up and I'm excited and I'm full of energy and I'm ready to go. Lord, have mercy on those mornings. There's something I don't want to do. I've hit the snooze 3 times and I've turned over, and at that point it doesn't do you any good because you're not resting anymore anyway. It's just harder to get up. We have the ability to be awake for the things that are important to us. Brothers and sisters, I can tell you there's nothing more important to be awake for than to worship God and to come into God's presence and to be sent forth to do God's work. We must stay awake. Life is short. There's much work to be done. The alarm clock is just a terrible sound to me. There's nothing worse than being in a deep, deep sleep. For years, I woke up to the radio. Problem is, if you wake up to the radio, you can just start singing that song in your head while you're still asleep. You know what I'm talking about. And before you know it, it's gone back off and you're still asleep. And even some mornings now, I've got the ability to be sound asleep, the alarm go off, me turn it off and go back to sleep and never remember having ever turned off the alarm. We can do that in church. We can get up and we can show up and we can get home and never realize that we were ever there. And again, that's a both-and situation. Because if you come and show up and get home and don't realize that you were ever there, then someone here hasn't done their job. Because if you come expecting to encounter Christ, if you show up knowing that He's already here, and you wake up long enough to get in the pews and turn to the first hymn, if you get home and don't have anything to talk about other than what the preacher's wearing, then we've not done our job. So my challenge is to wake up and prepare so that I can help us all stay awake. For we have important work to do. I told you about these cups. Life is short. Stay awake for it. Well, Caribou is rebranded a bit, and they've got a new logo, which I don't like as well. This is the old logo, and I can be a bit of a recidivist sometime, and so I can hold tight to those things. But they've got this campaign, and a lot of us, we might be in a restaurant, we'll grab a napkin and jot something down on the back of it to remind us. Well, they've got napkins, and you can go online, and they've got a campaign where it says, what is it that you are staying awake for? And you go on their website, and you can upload a video on YouTube, or you can upload your picture, and you can write in a box what it is that you're staying awake for. So this morning, I looked on the computer, and I saw some of the things that people were staying awake for. There were students that were staying awake for studying for classes. There was one that said they were staying awake to go to their friend's wedding. There's one that said they were staying awake to share fellowship with friends. There's all kind of things and people and places for which we stay awake. Our question this morning in the church is, what are we staying awake for? Is there anything important enough for us to wake up and stay awake long enough to do? Now, if I'd have had enough forethought, I'd have had some cards in our pews today, and I don't have those. We've got our little cards that you've already put in the plate. But here's what I want you to think about this week. It's twofold. One, in your personal life, what is it that you're staying awake for? I know that for Shannon and me, the first thing that we would say we're staying awake for is our son. That we stay awake and we do what it is that we do every day because of him. I can tell you that right now, aside from my family, that I stay awake for Atlanta First United Methodist Church. Because I am proud to be your pastor, and I'm proud to serve alongside of you, because I know the passion together we have for serving this city, for making a place for our children, for making sure that we aren't just hanging out here, but going beyond these walls. So I stay awake for my family, and I stay awake for our common ministry together. And each day brings with it a new opportunity, something new for which I need to stay awake and be mindful and be watchful, because I never know when the Master will return. I never know when Jesus might come back. I never know when he might walk through the doors of this church and what he might demand of me. None of us know. But we need to know what we're staying awake for. Another way to say that is, what are you passionate about? What drives you? And when I challenge you this morning, if there is something you're passionate about and you believe you can use that passion and your gifts to make a difference in this church, call me and let me know. Send me an email. And together we'll see if we can't find a place that we can make a difference in the lives of our members, in the lives of our community. What is it that you are staying awake for?